The 2025 schedule for the New Orleans Saints has been released. We'll talk about it and the biggest glaring problem with it right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvoglu, and as always, the Straight Up Saints podcast is brought to you by Scott Vicknair Injury Lawyers. You've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, or hurt offshore, Scott Vicknair handles it all. You give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. So the Saints schedule, just with every other NFL team, has been officially released about 3, 4, 5 minutes ago. So we'll get into it and go through all the games, the biggest takeaways, the concerns, maybe what could be the high points of the season. We'll talk about that. Obviously, it's all kind of projecting because we don't know how this team's going to look. But the NFL is telling you how they believe the Saints will look and their trust level in this team. Because despite how awesome the Who Dat Nation is, despite having a new head coach in Kellen Moore, and maybe that could be exciting, despite drafting a quarterback in Tyler Shuck, and although people aren't as high on him as you would, let's say, a top 10 pick at quarterback, maybe he could turn into something despite those uncertainties and the excitement that comes with the unknown as opposed to what we've known the last couple of years. The NFL did not give a single primetime game to the New Orleans Saints. In fact, if you look at their schedule, the most exciting game you're going to get in terms of a non-noon window is probably either week 9 against the Rams or week 12 against the Falcons. Other than that, the Saints are in their usual noon slot playing in that typical morning, early afternoon window where, let's be real, it is not the most riveting from a fan atmosphere. It's still good anytime you go in the dome, but outside of that, it's not as riveting to the national media, to the big scope of things, and it's upsetting. So let's go through the Saints schedule. I'll go through every week. We'll go through their opponents. Then we'll talk about the highlights and the lowlights of it. And as always, guys, if you have any thoughts, any comments, you put them in the live chat, and I'll make sure to pull them up as we go through the show. So let's start off with week 1 for the New Orleans Saints. It's going to start at home against the Arizona Cardinals. So week 1, September 7th, noon game, Arizona Cardinals. The next week, the Saints stay in the Superdome, and they stay facing an NFC West team. This time around, though, the San Francisco 49ers. So, I mean, the first 2 weeks going to be a tough test anyway, right? I think the Cardinals are going to be a better team than they were last year. And if the 49ers are healthy, obviously they're going to be a better team than what they were last year. They still have a lot of talent on that roster, and they still have championship pedigree. You move to week 3 now. First road game of the year, you got to go to Seattle. So not going to be an easy place to play. I would jokingly call it the Clint Kubiak revenge game now that he's the OC for Seattle. But week 3, Seahawks, week 4. So you traveled out west. Now you come back home and then travel up to the East Coast to play the Buffalo Bills. That ain't going to be an easy game. And frankly, if I were to pick one game on this schedule where it has blowout potential, week 4 at Buffalo, if you're starting Shuck, it's only his 4th game as a starter, things can get pretty rough. Luckily for the Saints, they're back home for the next 2, week 5 against the Giants. Hate to use the term winnable game because they're technically all winnable games, but man, that one feels pretty winnable for the New Orleans Saints. Week 6, still at home, you face the Patriots. So again, is it the easiest schedule? Absolutely not, but at least it softens up just a tad. Week 7 now. If there's a game that I want the Saints to win more than any other game this season, it's week 7 against the Chicago Bears on the road. And it's pretty simple as to why I want the Saints to win this game. He might be a good man. He might be a really, really chill guy. But Dennis Allen was one of the worst things to happen to the New Orleans Saints and to us Saints fans over the last 3 seasons. And I would love nothing more than if they beat his defense and send his ass back home with a loss. So week 7 against the Bears, there's a game I need the Saints to win. It's that one. Week 8 now. First divisional game of the season. They play the Buccaneers at home. Then they switch over to the West Coast real quick to play the Rams on week 9, and then another road game week 10 against the Panthers. Rams game, obviously not going to be easy. If they're healthy, we know what they can do. We saw what they did last year, making it to the divisional round. And then the Panthers, I think they definitely built some momentum last year, but would you be shocked if the Saints and Panthers split their season series? I wouldn't at all. Week 11 bye for the Saints. I kind of like that spot. not too late. Maybe you could say that it's not early enough, but look, you get 10 games down and then you still got 7 more after the bye. So, I don't mind a week 10 bye at all for the Saints. Week 12, you got the Falcons at home. Obviously, that's going to be a big game for all of us Saints fans that we want to watch and hope they can at least split their season series against Atlanta. I'd love for them to get a sweep, but I don't know how realistic that is. Week 13 starts a little 2-game road trip. You got Miami, so should be warm-ish weather. Don't have to worry. Even though that's going to be November 30th, it's not like it's going to be cold as hell in Miami on November 30th. And then December 7th, week 14 against the Bucs. So 2 games in the Sunshine State back-to-back to bring you back to New Orleans for week 15 and 16, where they play the Panthers in week 15 and the Jets in week 16. Again, 2 winnable games. Honestly, like if we're going to go look through them, those are winnable ones. Then week 17 against the Titans on the road, and then you wrap things up in Atlanta, week 18, possible division title on the line. I'm being sarcastic, but that's where you could end up seeing yourself having an interesting game. So through all that, now that I'm done rattling off what the schedule is, I think for the Saints, you are looking at a couple of games where I don't think they're going to have much of a chance early on in the season, because I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains, not just for the quarterback, but for the coach. And then as things settle in, they'll compete. Like, I honestly, guys, the first 4 games, Cardinals, Niners, Seahawks, Bills, that's a really tough slate, in my opinion, especially, that stretch where you go on the road. Seattle's a tough place to play. Buffalo's a tough place to play. Now, at home against the Giants and the Patriots, a little bit easier of a pill to swallow. Does it mean you get wins? No, but I mean, that to me, that looks like an easier slate than Bills and Seahawks on the road. I would say when you get to the post-bye, that's where things soften out for the Saints on paper. Falcons is a divisional game. You can never count out a divisional game. Miami, we'll see what their quarterback situation is looking by then. If Tua plays the whole season, if he does, obviously that looks like a tough game. Tampa, divisional game, it's a coin toss to me. Carolina, divisional game, it's a coin toss. Jets, we'll see how the Jets are going to be. I mean, they have another situation where you don't know what they have in quarterback at Justin Fields, and you don't know what they have at coach, frankly, in Aaron Glenn. And that dynamic's interesting, right? Aaron Glenn's who the Saints wanted, end up with Kellen Moore. Watch those 2 coaches go to battle on week 16 will be interesting. And then Titans, we'll see where they're at. They picked number 1 this past year for a reason. And then the Falcons, week 18. So, truthfully, I think the season's going to start off pretty rough for the Saints. And hopefully, post-bye is where you start to see a foundation of, and this doesn't mean you're going to stink for the first 10 weeks of the season, although they may. I think the post-bye schedule for the Saints is shaping up for them to kind of hit the ground running a little bit and build some momentum with Kellen Moore as coach, obviously, and Tyler Shuck at quarterback. So that's what I'm looking at for New Orleans. What I would say the main takeaway is that the Saints didn't get a primetime game. And I know some fans might be thrilled about that, right? You don't have to worry about a game on Monday night. You can enjoy your Monday night, do whatever you want. You don't have to worry about Thursday night. You go watch whatever primetime games on Thursday night. You go to the movies on Thursday night. You go play video games on Thursday night. You can do whatever. Whatever is your thing on Thursday night. You don't have to worry about the Saints playing on Prime Video. So maybe you see that as a plus. And the Saints not playing Sunday night, okay, maybe you go to bed early. What I see that is, to me, for the Saints to not get a primetime game, it just shows how far they've fallen compared to where they were years ago. And the good thing about the NFL is it really just takes 1 year to get everything back in order. I think about the Washington Commanders, where they were a season ago was kind of in the dumps. And obviously getting Jaden Daniels fixes a whole lot. And the Saints don't have Jaden Daniels. I understand that. But we have seen NFL teams after a year kind of rebuild their image. But where the Saints are right now, and the NFL is telling you where the Saints are at, is they're not worth watching. If you're not a New Orleans Saints fan, the NFL is telling you they're not worth watching, and there really isn't a market to watch this team right now. And the worst part about it, and what really hurts me, is I know that's true, and I understand it. And I don't, again, this isn't to say that I'm not excited about the season. I'm so freaking excited about the season because I miss football. You know, once you hit May, once you hit June, you're waiting for the season to start. You get that little break where in February and March, you're like, all right, no football, no stress. And then you want that thing to start all over again. So I'm excited for the season. I will be watching all 17 games for the Saints. I will be fully engaged for all 17 games in the Saints. But I asked this question leading up to the draft, and I feel like now more than ever, it's very, very relevant. What is the main draw to watching the New Orleans Saints right now? Well, honest to God, like asking you guys in the chat too, What is the main draw to watching the Saints? Because you don't know if their quarterback's any good. You don't know if their coach is any good. You know that their GM has been on a pretty bad, generationally bad run of late. Their defense has some stars that are loved, but they're older. Tyrann Mathieu, near retirement. Cam Jordan, near retirement. Demario Davis, near retirement. And offensively, we love Chris Olave, but Chris Olave gets hurt a lot. We love Alvin Kamara, but Alvin Kamara is also getting up there in age. So what is the main draw for the New Orleans Saints? Like what would bring a casual NFL fan or an NFL fan with no dog in this fight to watch a Saints game and say, you know what? I want to put the game on and watch this team. There isn't one. And I think that's part of the reason why you're not seeing them on prime time, besides the fact that the Saints aren't going to be good this year, most likely, So look, I am always going to be pumped for this team, regardless of the circumstances. And part of it is that kind of blind faith that people have. But for New Orleans, outside of New Orleans fans, there isn't a draw for the Saints, unfortunately. And that's the circumstance they've found themselves in. So that part really stinks. And again, it doesn't mean that I don't love this team. You guys know I love this team. But the NFL is telling you it might be a while before we see them back on primetime. So to me, that's a concern. Another concern, real quick, worth putting out there would be if this season does go, turns out to be a pleasant surprise. And who knows, it might. And I've said this before, the Saints season is so unpredictable because I don't know what to expect from their coach or quarterback. And when I don't know what to expect from the most important duo that you're going to have as a franchise, then I really can't put, a ceiling, and I can't put a floor for this team either because I don't know. And I view that as a good thing for the Saints as opposed to where they were last year where, all right, the floor wasn't 2-15, but the ceiling wasn't incredibly high. We knew the Saints, if they were healthy, probably win like 7 or 8 games. They end up winning 5 because of injuries, fine. But if the Saints end up being a pleasant surprise this year, the only concern I'd have about this schedule is that the last stretch of it, 4 out of the last 6 games are on the road. So, if you need wins down the stretch because the NFC South is for the taking, again, I don't know if it will be, but I also don't think the division's that good. I still think the division is taking its sweet-ass time when it comes to building out a clear contender. Maybe that's the part that you get a little concerned about is 4 out of 6 games on the road. Is that going to be tough? But, for anyone saying, Chris, you sound really negative right now about the schedule and, don't count them out. I'm pretty fair. I wouldn't even bet on the Saints win-loss total. Like right now, I'm telling you this, the NFL doesn't think the Saints are good, hence why they didn't get nationally televised games. But I can't sit here right now and say, oh, I'm definitely going to slam the under for this team, or, I believe they're only going to win 4 or 5 games because I don't know what they have at coach, and I don't know what the hell they have at quarterback. And if the quarterback's bad and the coach is bad, we'll see it quickly, and all of a sudden this team will kind of spiral. But if they're decent, it's going to be a fun season for us to watch. Even if they don't make the playoffs, even if they don't win 7 games, if the Saints go 6-11, but Tyler Shuck looks like the guy and Kellen Moore's offense looks like it works, and we feel like it's going to work in the future, man, then I'll feel good about where this franchise is heading. And that, to me, is going to be the main factor. So I'm going to get into some comments that you guys have, and I'll continue to give my thoughts as we go along. DJ Trauma Gaming saying, I'm going to Seattle or Chicago. I mean, I think those are pretty good, awesome places to go to. Seattle week 3, from a fan perspective, seems awesome. Hell, I'd say Buffalo week 4 also seems pretty cool in terms of, what Bills Mafia is all about. And, that and it won't be that cold, right? You don't have to worry about going to Buffalo in November, December, January. It's a little different, but those are good spots. But Chicago too, obviously Soldier Field's an iconic place, and that should be a really good game. Joshua says, could easily go 0-4 right away. I mean, look, they could, but the way the NFL works, also wouldn't be surprised if they sneak a game. Look, I'm just saying, I would not be surprised if they win like the Cardinals game to start the season. I'm just saying. Now, do I think they lose to the Niners? Yes. Do I think they lose to Seattle? Most likely, but even then, it's a little bit of a toss-up. Do I think they lose to Buffalo? Yes. But, the Arizona game and the Seattle game, I don't know, because I don't know what to expect from those 2 quarterbacks, So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Opening at home against the Cardinals is such a good test. Yeah, look, I like the spot for them. Any game for the Saints would be kind of a nice test because we don't know what they're about. But to get Brandon Staley's defense against a mobile quarterback in Kyler Murray, I like that. I think it's going to be a nice litmus test to see where that scheme is at and their athletes Are they going to be able to handle dual threat quarterbacks this year? That's going to be good. But on the flip side, right? Jonathan Gannon's defense, I think, is going to take that next step. And we know what he's all about. He's a very, very good defensive coach. And ironically enough, got his big break because the Eagles making to the Super Bowl. Now you have Kellen Moore, who got his big break with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. His offensive mind against Gannon's defensive mind, I think that is going to be a really, really nice test for the Saints. So, I'm curious to see how that one goes, but I agree with you. I think that's going to definitely be a nice start for the season for the Saints. And win or lose, I am excited for that one. Jay Jernigan says, easy 4-0. Let's go. Hey, man, I love the optimism, though. Jerry says, start strong. Who Dat Nation? Jay Jernigan says, I love being the underdogs. Well, I would say get used to it. I mean, they're going to be underdogs out the gates pretty early. Truthfully, guys, I think the Saints will probably be underdogs for the first 4 games for sure. And if they look decent in any of them, then maybe they're favored for the Giants game. But other than that, I think the Saints will probably only be favored in one of their first 10 games, whether it's the Giants game or the Panthers game, and that's it. Jerry says 2025 NFC South champions. I'm not going to get my hopes up, Jerry, but I will say, a lot of people talking about, they'll be in the basement of the South. The odds tell you yes. The league is telling you yes. But I also have paid attention to the NFC South. I do not think this division's gotten much better. Falcons are always all in and never get shit for kind of flaming out. Panthers are ascending, but not like dramatically. They were god-awful, and now they're just bad. It's not like they went from god-awful to good. And then the Buccaneers are good, but I do believe that the Bucs still have some work to be done. And they're an aging team, so we'll see. Marcus says, what if 12-5? I mean, if they go 12-5, obviously I'd be pretty excited about that. I don't think that I don't think they go 12-5. I think 5-12 is far more likely, but obviously I'd be pumped about that. Lewis says, is it Lewis or Luis says main draw equals my blood is black and gold. No, I agree with you. And that's the main draw for me as well, right? Like I don't view this Saints schedule for me and go, oh, well, I'm not excited. Of course I'm excited. I love this team, but I'm not naive about it. I mean, every other, fan base, they're going to look at the Saints and go, well, why the fuck would I watch this team? And they're not going to anyway, because they're not going to be on national TV. Willie Handy 79 says 3-14. Maybe. Marcus says, we said that in 2006. Look what happened. Went to the NFC Championship. I know, but it's always, and I understand your point. You're not necessarily wrong, but it's like looking back, like you had Sean Payton and Drew Brees, and now you realize, like, okay, that's why it worked. What are the odds that you are able to strike, strike lightning in a bottle twice and get that with Shuck and Kellen Moore? I don't see it. I'm skeptical about that. Floor equals 4 wins, ceiling equals 7. I actually, to be honest, I think I would drop the floor and I'd leave the ceiling the way it is. I think the ceiling's probably 7-8 wins, but 7 wins, to be honest. And I think the floor is probably around 2. And the reason I say that is I just don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be like. So I want to drop the floor a little bit. I look at this. I do believe that the Saints are going to win more than 2 games. I'm not saying the Saints are going to win 2. I think the Saints are going to go, and this is just a gut feeling, I think they're probably going to go 5-12. That's just my expectations. But, I would not be surprised if they end up kind of getting close to what you're saying there with the floor being 4, the ceiling being 7. DJ Trauma Game says you had Reggie Bush in 2006 as Rookie of the Year. Like what? Yeah, I mean, when you look back at that Saints roster, I know in the moment it was a shock to the system, but like the 2006 draft, they absolutely crushed that draft. Like I'm going to pull it up because that draft class is, we always talk about the 2017 class. The 2006 draft for the Saints, you got Reggie Bush, Roman Harper, Jari Evans, Rob Ninkovich, Zach Strief, Marcus Colston. I mean, that is an insane draft haul as well. So, again, we don't know what this team's going to be. And I see Tool One saying it, and you are right. We don't know. And I think the Saints, and it's why I said I would not bet a single dollar on the Saints because I don't know what they're going to be. This team, they have so many question marks, and some of those question marks could become solutions. Like I have questions about how the front, defensive front's going to look with Staley. But who knows? Maybe Chase Young has that breakout year. Maybe Brzee gets better. So it's possible. I have questions about the secondary, but maybe Justin Reed's great. Maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry takes that next step, and Alontae Taylor is more consistent. So, those things can become solutions for the Saints, but there's so many that I just don't feel comfortable. DJ Trauma game saying, is this the Bills last year in Highmark, and then they moved to the new stadium? I might have to go. It is the last year. I believe it's 2026. Let me pull that up just to be sure, but I am pretty sure that they go to the new stadium in 2026. Let's see. The new Highmark Stadium is expected to open, in the fall of 2026. So if you want to hit up the old stadium in its final year, this is the year to do it, man. And the perks of not freezing your ass off. I think that's the one knock on the New York games when you play in the winter. Fuck, man, as a fan, it's tough. You're sitting there trying to enjoy the game, but you got hand warmers. You're drinking 55 hot chocolates just to stay warm. It's just not worth it. So for that game to be early in the season is a huge plus. And I know whether or not people like him. I mean, Josh Allen's freaking awesome. So, to be able to watch him live, I'm sure is going to be pretty cool. But more importantly, getting to see the Saints, in a hostile environment is pretty awesome. Walter says, Alvin Kamara's career averages against Seahawks look fake. Yeah, I'm pretty sure every time he's played them, he's balled out. So I think I'll keep note of that as they get closer to that one. But hey, look, I know, that's a tough environment on the road. Seattle is in a similar boat with New Orleans where what are you getting out of your quarterback? I know Sam Darnold he's got experience, but the Saints aren't exactly facing a daunting quarterback schedule, which I think is also why I'm not ready to say, they're going to win 2 games, is who are the definite quarterbacks that they're going to face that I've played in the NFL multiple years now and have looked good so far. Kyler week 1, all right. Brock Purdy week 2. Week 4, Josh Allen. And then I got to wait in terms of proven to week 9 with Stafford. Now, I do believe Drake May is really talented. I do believe Caleb Williams is really talented. So I do think that those are quarterback matchups that could be tough, but you're not facing Lamar. You're not facing Mahomes. You're not facing, Justin Herbert. You're not facing Joe Burrow. There's a lot of quarterbacks, good ones. You're not facing Jaden Daniels that the Saints are going to get out of having to face. So, yeah, you'll face Penix twice a year. You'll face Baker twice a year. Bryce Young twice a year. Those aren't scrubs, but that's not a daunting, schedule. The Jets, Justin Fields, okay. Cam Ward, we don't know what he's going to be. If Tua is healthy for that game, all right, but who knows by November 30th if he'll be in the lineup. Week 5 against the Giants, I'm assuming they'll start Russell Wilson, but I don't know. I mean, do they start Jackson Dart by then? Is it Jameis time for some reason? I don't know. So one pro I'll say about the Saints schedule, they are not exactly facing a murderer's row at the quarterback spot. So you're not facing a murderer's row at the quarterback spot. You do open up with 4 out of 6 home games. So if you're trying to get your offense situated, you're trying to get your rookie quarterback comfortable, going to be in a dome, don't have to worry about cold weather. So that's a plus. And honestly, speaking of cold weather, October 19th against the Bears, it'll be breezy, but I can't see it being freezing. So that's a plus. December 28th against the Titans, okay, that one can get cold. But Falcons road late, it's in a dome. December 7th against the Bucks, that's not going to be freezing. November 30th against the Dolphins, not going to be freezing. November 2nd against the Rams, indoors, plus it's LA. So you're not going to have to worry about cold weather games, especially because you're getting Seattle and Buffalo early in the year. So that's going to be good for this team in terms of trying to make sure your quarterback's feeling pretty comfortable if we're looking for minor wins here. Walter says we still don't even fully know if Bryce and Penix have arrived. We just think they have this division. Is really just we just think they have this division is really just the Bucs and everyone else right now. And how much longer can Bowles squeak by with his job? Yeah, I agree. Look, that's why the way I view the Saints is if they go 6-11, or heck, if they went 7-10, but I feel like Shuck looks pretty good, and I feel like Kellen Moore's offense had moments, I will feel really confident about this team because I'm telling you right now, when I look at this division, I don't see a team that has built themselves for a long stretch run in this. I think the Panthers are still trying to figure out if Bryce Young's their guy. The Falcons have no idea if Penix is their guy. They hope he's their guy. and they're going to have to commit for the next 2 years. So I do believe that Penix, at the minimum, will be a solid quarterback because I think he's too smart, and I think he's just a very good kind of a point guard of the offense, right? Ball comes out quick. Penix is very on time and on rhythm with everything. But I don't know if Penix has superstar potential. I think he's more of a solid quarterback. And maybe he proves me wrong, and I wish him well, obviously, even though I want the Falcons to stink. And then when you look at the Bucs, who are by far the best team in this division, they are, in my opinion, at a crossroads here. Because Baker's good, but I don't know if they'll ever win with Baker. And they do have some aging guys. Mike Evans is aging. Chris Godwin, aging. I mean, apparently Levante David is going to play football till he's 65, but again, older player. And how many times can you replace your offensive coordinator? You replace Dave Canales with Liam Cohen. Great. Now you got to replace Liam Cohen. What are the odds that the Bucs, for a third straight year, nail the OC hire under Bowles? I think that's a little bit of a toss-up. DJ Trauma Gaming with another super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Says, I got killed on Falcons. Would pick Penix. I did. Jury is still out, but he did almost beat the Commanders. I saw them picking Penix as a fallback plan. Yeah, look, I think he played pretty well. I'm going to pull up his numbers now that you mention it. I thought for limited time, he actually did pretty well. So I'm going to pull up his game logs from last season. So second to last game of the season, he went 19 of 35. So not great completion percentage, but 223 yards, a touchdown, and an interception in an overtime loss to the Commanders. So, hey, that's a team that won in the NFC Championship game. That's a pretty good result. Third game, but last game of the season for Penix, 21 to 38. So again, completion percentage a little not where you wanted to be, but you're not going to, hammer him for it in his rookie season. 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception in a 44 to 38 overtime loss. So the offense did its job. So 2 overtime losses for Penix. I would say he definitely finished on a pretty decent note. And look, I think Penix is going to be a solid quarterback. I just don't know if his ceiling is superstar potential high. Like when I looked at the draft class he's in, obviously Jaden Daniels is that dude. I think Drake May could become that dude, and I think Caleb Williams can become that dude. I think Bo Nix and Penix have, really, really smart football IQs when it comes to everything's got to be on time. You don't have to, make any irrational decisions. And I think they're going to get better and better. I just don't know how high their ceiling is going to be. But, it goes to show, though, in the NFC South, who's this juggernaut team, though? Because I don't see one. And this isn't for this year. I'm just talking grand scope of things. This has to be a platform year to next year, which has to be the big one for the Saints. I said this before, and a lot of people are like, no, the Saints are going to be patient with Kellen Moore. There's no patience in the NFL. It's just how the league goes now. No one has patience for anything. And it doesn't mean the Saints have to be good this year, and I don't think they're going to be good this year at all. But they need to have some building blocks established, and they need to make some progress so you feel like going into next season, first off, we'll hope they get a fucking primetime game, but more importantly, you feel like, hey, all right, I think the O-line is going to be their strength. I think the defensive secondary is going to get a little bit better. There needs to be things that you can hang your hat on for the Saints next year, and obviously you got to build that foundation starting this year. DJ Trauma Game saying, I want to see Shuck do well. Who dat? Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why, and this is no knock on Spencer Rattler, but when everyone starts talking about the Saints quarterback spot and while it might be a battle, it could be a battle, but I just want to see Shuck start all 17 games. And I want the Saints to know by the end of the season, do they feel like Shuck can play in the NFL, or do they feel like they got to draft another quarterback? Because you got to move quick in this league. If you wait, that's going to come bite you right back in the ass. So if you're the Saints, you got to get some closure and some feeling of whether or not Shuck can be the guy. And look, man, this is a big thing for Shuck. He's going to be 26 in September. It's not like you're drafting a quarterback and you feel like, okay, we can be super patient with him. Because I believe you draft Shuck. Obviously, you like the physical intangibles and you like the guy. And there's reasons and there's levels to why the Saints drafted him. But one of the huge perks to drafting a 26-year-old prospect should be, hey, he should be ready to start. And if he's not, does that mean he's not going to be good? No, it doesn't mean that. But I would love for the Saints to be like in August, yeah, no, we feel good about this kid being able to start. So that's what I'm hoping for. Till One says, honestly, we don't know enough to expect anything yet. No, absolutely not. Yeah, I agree. To me, this year, I'm hoping they establish something so I know going into next year that I can hang my hat as a fan on these things. Because right now, honestly, the only thing that I feel pretty good about is the talent of the O-line. Doesn't mean it's going to be good, because if Eric McCoy goes out, we saw what happens. But I like the talent of the O-line. I think the secondary got better adding Jonas Sanker and Justin Reed. Maybe they add Asante Samuel Jr. They've had talks with him. So maybe that happens and the secondary is a little bit deeper. But I don't know what to expect from the ground game, what to expect from the quarterback, what to expect from the receivers. So we'll see for the Saints. Houston says, when does training camp begin for the Saints? So training camp for this year, let's pull it up. Let's see. Pull out the workout schedule here. I know they got mini camp coming up at some point. Training camp for New Orleans is going to be July. Did it not get announced yet? Looks like it didn't get announced yet. All I'm getting right now are OTAs, which is end of this month. Mini camp, which is June 10th to 12th. Not seeing anything about training camp yet. So maybe that'll get hammered out at a later date. I know obviously they're gonna have camp in July, but there's no date yet. So when that comes out, I'll get to it, unless I missed it, but I did not see a date for it. If the O-line is good, then Shuck will be good, and the rebuild will accelerate very quickly. This team needs to get the O-line right, assuming Kellen Moore can coach. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of talent on this O-line. Eric McCoy, former second-round pick. Ruiz, former first-round pick. Fuaga's last year's first-round pick. This year's first-round pick in Kelvin Banks. Trevor Penning, 2022 first-round pick. Even Dylan Radins, who they just signed, and that is your veteran free agency signing that I don't want to say went under the radar, but a decent versatile player. I mean, that's a former second-round pick. So the Saints have a lot of early investments on this line. Joseph says, playing a lot of teams in our situation with new coaches and unknowns at quarterback. Yeah, I think that's fair. Panthers, still kind of an unknown. Falcons, an unknown. Jets, an unknown. Bears, new coach. Giants might have a rookie quarterback playing by then. Vrabel is not a new coach, but it's a coach in a new system, I guess, if you want to say. But Vrabel's, I think he's going to do a great job there. Seattle, new quarterback. Still trying to figure out their coach with Mike McDonald. So we'll see. I totally get your point. Titans, Cam Ward, second year with Callahan. So we'll see. DJ Trauma Game with another super chat says, rotate him, see what you have. If you're bad, draft one. I mean, I don't know about rotating. What I would say is this. If Rattler is by far the better option in camp and preseason, then I say you start Rattler and then eventually shift to Shuck. If it is close, I say you start Shuck and you get this thing started early. Rotating them, though, I think once you commit to Shuck, you got to see it through. If you start with Rattler and you go to Shuck, you kind of commit. You're already committing there. So I don't know if there's going to be a window for them to do any rotating, and I don't think they should. I can get behind the idea, though, if Rattler looks more polished because he has a year under his belt, to start him, and then week 5 maybe you switch over to Shuck against the Giants. You can convince me on that, but it's just tough to rotate. It doesn't happen. But to your point on the second part, I do agree with. You got to figure out what you got in this quarterback room, because if you got to pivot to next year's class, you pivot to next year's class. Xavier says, thoughts on the UDFA quarterback signing for the Saints? I mean, truthfully, I think when you go out there, when you get Hunter Deckers, I just can't body, I think. He's had a hell of an interesting career, though. I'll put it that way. Starts off at Iowa State. You feel like he's developing. And then, okay, you got to go transfer to Iowa Western. Had a really nice year at Iowa Western, but just a weird path. Iowa State, he's building, and I thought he had a pretty decent year at 2022. Then he's got the gambling scandal that keeps him out of 2023, and then you got to go to Iowa Western. So, I don't know. I think he's more of a camp body, but who knows? Maybe he'll shock some people and earn a spot on the practice squad. DJ Trauma Game, he says, rotate if it's bad, like Hainer, and yeah, what you said, Rattler's experience helps him. It should. In theory, it really should. I think that if Rattler struggles in the preseason and in camp, I'm not saying I would be surprised, but it'd be a little bit of a letdown in the sense that that should be the edge that he has. The edge that Shuck has is that he was handpicked by Kellen Moore. The edge that Rattler has is, hey man, I started 6 games for this team last year. Now they did go 0-6, although you guys know where I stand on win-loss. I think it's a team stat, not a quarterback stat. So that should be his advantage. But if it gets so bad that they got to start playing like Hainer out there and stuff, man, it's tough. Xavier says, do you still pull Rattler if he starts and goes 3-2? Well, how does he look? I would say is that. Now, I think if they start 3-2, he's probably playing well. I can't see them starting 3-2 and him not playing well. The reason I say that is their schedule's not easy, right? Like Cardinals, Niners, Seahawks, Bills. I mean, if you're going to win 2 out of those 4 games, he's got to play well because that's a tough slate. I mean, you're versing, a team that is a year removed from making the Super Bowl. 2 teams in the NFC West and the Cardinals and Seahawks that are, they got a lot of talent. And then the Bills who are a Super Bowl contender. So he would have to play well. So in that sense, no, I wouldn't pull him. And I think that's what it comes down to. I know record can be used against him if they start 0-5, but he's playing well and maybe they still pull him. But by no means, if they're 3-2, would I pull him because then that probably means that he's doing a good job. But I don't even know if he's going to start the season, though, as QB1, though. I would not be surprised if the Saints just kind of say, hey, Shuck for 17 games and, let's see what happens. And I really don't think that's a bad move at all. You invested a top 40 pick in the guy. You got to go for it. Betting the over on the Saints. Hey, man, I like the confidence, man. I like the confidence. Kimberly says Rattler didn't have much time to throw. Didn't have much to throw to, excuse me. Look, didn't have a lot of time, didn't have a lot of great options. Not a great situation. Now, I do believe that some Saints fans like fantasize about what Rattler could be that I never think he's going to hit what they think he's going to be. Like, I do think there are a lot of fans out there that think the Saints may have something special in him, and I just don't see it. Do I think he could be in starter in this league? Yeah, because I just think his arm talent's really good. But I will be rooting heavily for whoever they start. But I do believe it probably benefits this organization to play Shuck because they invested a top 40 pick. Like they got to figure it the fuck out if this kid's any good. So we'll see what they do. But to what you guys are saying, if it is Rattler and they start 3-2, we might be in for a fun season. That's the way I would look at it. Just call me. Trey says, man, thinking about these past 3 years schedules, if only we had the 2018 to 2019 roster, we would have won the division all these years. I mean, yeah, look at this schedule. If you gave me that type of roster, now that type of roster, you would not be playing a 3rd or 4th place schedule. You would be playing a 1st place schedule. But yeah, 100%. They would wipe the floor with these teams. Joseph says, Taysom Hill's our veteran quarterback, LOL. I'm just saying, guys, I don't know if he's going to be on the roster come week 1. And you guys know I am one of the biggest Taysom fans out there. So when I say that, it doesn't bring me any joy. It brings me only pain. Xavier says, just don't want us to pull a Steelers move. Can you clarify by that, Xavier? What do you mean by pulling a Steelers move? Do you mean bringing in Aaron Rodgers? Because that's not going to happen. But I'm kind of lost on what you mean by that. Trey says, just saw the Saints schedule. They have to start 2-2. Going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. If they start 2-2, I think that's a really, really nice start to the Kellen Moore era. Really nice start. Because I think the Bills game is going to be a loss. And then I think you're definitely losing at least one of those 2 home games to start the season. I think Seattle's winnable. I really do. Maybe I'm just like being really, really delusional right now. But I don't like Sam Darnold playing in Seattle's offense. And it's not trying to knock Sam. It's just I think a lot of people don't realize Geno Smith was under so much quarterback pressure last year. And if we put Darnold under that same pressure, he is going to crumble. That is not his strong suit. And Minnesota did a good job of masking that. Xavier says benching Fields for Russell. Oh, I mean, look, here's the thing, though, about that, Xavier. Do the Saints have that on their roster, though? Like, both quarterbacks are unknowns right now in Rattler and Shuck. So, like, I think the Steelers one's a little different because you were playing Fields, and the only reason they really benched him is because they promised Russell Wilson the starting job, and they felt like, hey, let's make the move. And also, Russ is an older quarterback. They brought him in to be the starter. It's a little different. Like, I think if the Saints were to start 3-2 or something, or 4-2, let's say, which I don't anticipate them to, but let's say they do, I do not think that they would make a quarterback change. But I also am going to stand on, trust my gut right now and say I do believe they're going to start Tyler Shuck. I think that's what they're ready to do. Trey says they better win on my birthday against Seattle. I hope so, man. I hope so. I'll be hoping for my birthday that they beat the Giants. Now, my birthday's the 2nd of October, not the 5th, but I guess maybe that'll be my birthday present. But September 21st, Seattle, I'll be rooting for a birthday win for you, Trey. Till One says rookie quarterback has its advantages as well. Harder for teams to prepare for them because it's not like a lot of videotape on them. Kind of like Dak, Jaden, CJ Stroud, rookie years for sure. I mean, I'll take a quarterback who hasn't been good in this league, but I remember his first start. Daniel Jones was on fire his first start. When you're a rookie, you come in, you can look at the college tape all you want, but it's not the same because you're not watching that guy in this system that he's now in. Whatever you watch from Shuck at Louisville, it's not Kellen Moore calling the shots. What do you think our record would be? I think 10-7. I mean, I love the optimism. I wish I could have your optimism in that regard. I think the Saints would probably go like 5-12, 6-11. That's my guess. But I'm very fair about this. It's all relative to coach and quarterback. If Kellen Moore and Tyler Shuck are better than I think they'll be, then this team can win more games. And if they're worse, obviously, then it'll be less. But I just feel comfortable with saying I think they could split all 3 divisional series. So let's say they split all 3. That gets you to 3 wins. I think you can beat the Cardinals. I think you could beat the Giants. I think you could beat the Jets. So that gets me to 6 wins. Maybe you could beat the Titans or beat the Patriots. Seattle and the Bears ones are winnable. So look, there's ways to squint and get your way to a nice record. But I'm gonna go with 6-11. And again, I just think there's so many unknowns. My thoughts on this team can change. For the first 4 weeks of the season can play out, and I can have an entirely different opinion of the New Orleans Saints based on how Shuck looks, based on how Kellen Moore looks, and then kind of go from there. Joseph says, Libra brother, my birthday's October 4th. Hell yeah, man. All right, so your birthday's right before that Giants game, literally right before. So hopefully they get a win for our birthday here. William says Moore has good motivation as it's his homecoming. Look, I think Kellen Moore, yeah, for sure. That could be a factor in it. Kellen Moore's going to be highly motivated this season anyway, and most coaches will, but this is a great opportunity for him. He took a job that not a lot of coaches were exactly eager to take. They picked the quarterback that he wanted outside of Cam Ward, obviously, because they couldn't get Cam Ward. So we'll see what happens. They built the O-line in the image that he wanted it to be built in. I am interested to see how this all plays out, man. I'm really interested to see how this plays out for them. But, looking at this schedule right now, I think the funniest thing about the NFL, and I am so guilty of it because I've been doing it for the last 40-something minutes talking about it, is it changes on a dime. Like today, we look at this schedule and we go, this game's winnable. This game's going to be a tough one. Like you see the Rams game November 2nd. If Matt Stafford gets hurt or something, that Rams game, it's no longer looking daunting. You see the Bears week 7. Right now, it looks pretty challenging. What's to say Ben Johnson's a really good offensive coordinator and not a good head coach? Then all of a sudden that Bears game looks a little winnable. So, it's the funniest thing that we all do, and I am super guilty of it all the time. So one says offensive line is already better this year. Running game will be good. I think that's got to be the focal point. Joseph says it too. We're going to run the ball if we have any sense. I think for the Saints, A, you've invested so much in the O-line. B, you still have Alvin Kamara, who's a damn good running back. And obviously Devin Neal, you added him via the draft. I'm knock on wood that Kendre Miller could stay healthy, but you have some running back talent. Run the football, takes pressure off of Shuck, opens up the play action pass game, opens up some RPO. So I think that the Saints, if they're going to have any success, you got to run the football. I totally agree with you too, for you guys mentioned that. Have you heard anything on preseason game? I need to see how Tyler and Rattler look. Yeah, so pull up if the preseason games are out for the Saints. Haven't seen anything yet. I think I heard something about them playing the Broncos for the preseason. I have not heard anything yet, though, regarding the rest of it, though. Yeah, so I have not. Oh, actually, no, here's the preseason. Game 1, Chargers, August 10th. So that's our first kind of like taste of seeing the quarterbacks for the Saints. Game 1 of the preseason, August 10th at the LA Chargers. Game 2, August 17th. So back-to-back Sunday games for the Saints versus the Jaguars at home. Not bad. And then game 3, a Saturday game at noon versus the Broncos. So look, I mean, August 10th, August 17th, August 23rd, those are the dates if you want to mark them to get ready for this Saints team and seeing what they're able to do. That's going to be it. And look, I think the pro of being an unknown is that the preseason gets way more exciting. Like when you got your team, the preseason is kind of a wash. You know what it's there for. You're not really expecting much. Us Saints fans got to watch the preseason with a close eye and see what's going on there. Jerry's saying, let's get it. Saints got this. I hope so, Jerry. I hope so. I love your optimism, though, Jerry. Till one says RPO. Yes, sir. I totally agree. Look, I mean, if the Saints start Shuck, you got to use that 40-yard dash speed that he has to his advantage. I mean, look, I know he's gotten a lot of injuries over the course of his college career, but to have a 6'5" quarterback run a 4.63 is pretty freaking impressive. And if you're trying to unlock things as an offense, you're gonna have to use the RPO. Joshua says, "What do you think about having no primetime games?" I think it's bullshit. Look, here's where I'm at with it. As a fan, I am hurt because I love nationally televised games. And I know maybe some people just like chilling on, in the noon spot. I love nationally televised games. I think there's nothing better than seeing everyone watching your team and, your team has a chance to put on a show and really grab everyone's attention. And would that have been the case for this year? I don't know. And was that the case last year? Definitely not. Saints got embarrassed on primetime a couple times. I think of Cardinals a couple years ago on primetime, embarrassed. Rams, embarrassed. Chiefs Monday night, they got embarrassed. So, it stinks, but, the fan part of it sucks. I really wish the NFL gave at least every team a primetime game, but I understand why they're not getting one. So, the rational side of it and just taking out the fan aspect and eliminating that, I understand why we don't have a primetime game. But, man, when the Saints don't have a primetime game and the Cowboys stunk up the joint last year and they're like every other fucking game is nationally televised, it sucks. Like, it genuinely sucks. But I understand it. My hope is that the Saints surprise people this year. And next year, when the schedule comes out, we're not worrying about whether or not they get a primetime game because we know the NFL is going to have no choice but to put them in one. That is my hope. And again, does that happen? I don't know, but that's what I'm hoping for. Till one says run game seems to be the foundation at this point. It has to be. First off, we just saw what the Eagles did. Now, I know the Eagles have so much more talent than the Saints, obviously with Saquon and the O-line that they have and Jalen Hurts. But their foundation to winning the Super Bowl is running the football and then building everything off of that offensively. So we'll see what happens, but that is my hope for sure. So we'll see how that all kind of plays out for the Saints. But 2025 schedule is out. The Saints do not have a primetime game. They open up with 2 home games, though, in the Dome. So hopefully Saints fans show out for that. Preseason, August 10th, preseason opener. So we'll see the quarterbacks kind of battle it out then. And it'll be fun. Obviously, as we lead up to it, we'll have a lot more podcasts, Monday and Wednesday shows as we've been doing and all that. So there's going to be a lot for us to build towards. Would you bring back Trey Hendrickson? I think it depends what it would cost, man. I think that's my concern. I think Trey's awesome. Wish the Saints never lost him. Obviously, the Saints, if they could do it over again, would take him back. But I'm a little nervous about a team that has a lot of holes, kind of spending $30 million on a pass rusher and trading assets to get him. If the assets aren't that bad, then maybe I'd change my stance a little bit. But I'll probably say no. I'm going to say no, and it doesn't mean that I don't want him back in New Orleans. I just want this team to think more big picture down the road, where that money can be spent elsewhere as opposed to like just forcing a move now to get a really good impact player. And Trey's awesome. I love Trey Hendrickson, but I probably would say no. But if the trade got made and they didn't give up a lot to get him, then I'd be okay. But that is the problem, though. You're giving up a lot probably, and then you're paying him $30+ million, $35+ million. So, it becomes a very expensive move. And I just don't know the Saints at this current juncture should do that. But again, guys, schedule's out. who the hell knows how it's all going to play out? I do think the Saints are probably like a 6-7 win team this year. 6 is probably where I'm sitting at right now. Could my opinion change in a heartbeat? Abso-freaking-lutely. And I hope it does. But until then, guys, we're going to keep you covered here at Brew Crew Media. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page for more videos in the near future. We've been doing Monday and Wednesday shows alternating. And obviously, if anything breaks, we'll have emergency podcasts, just like Derek Carr deciding to retire on a random Saturday. So make sure to subscribe, like the video if you guys haven't. And as always, stay tuned for more from the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.